So what I want to do now is just show you kind of a more complicated proof. So here's our claim. Oops, let me get the pen going again. So here's our claim. Minus 1 times minus 1 is equal to 1. Okay, this is a fact that we all know, and at some point or another you probably wonder why. Why are we multiplying negative numbers and getting a positive number? And if you're like most people, I think at some point you just says, well, it's just this, okay? But I want to show you that this actually isn't a choice that somebody make. This simply follows from those rules of arithmetic that we saw earlier. And I don't think that we were able to argue with any of those rules. Those all looked just fine. So let's see. Let's try to prove this. And so how do we do it? Well, we're going to start with the left-hand side, minus 1 times minus 1, and we'll have a string of equalities. Okay, so here is my next step. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say that this is equal to minus 1 times minus 1, and then I'll add 0. Okay, and I can always add 0 to something, and if you might remember, that was plus identity. Okay, so that's the name of the rule. So here is our reason. Okay, and if you're wondering, why did he make that step? Don't worry about it, okay? I'm showing you something that comes out of a great deal of scratch work, and I'm simply not showing you the scratch work because it's not relevant. I just want you to see how the proof gets written, okay? So let's try this again. So what we'll do is I'm going to leave the minus 1 times minus 1 alone, and I'm going to work on this 0. And I'm going to write it this way. Plus minus 1 plus 1. Okay? And so my 0 became minus 1 plus 1. And I can do that by plus complement. Okay? And there's actually a reason that I chose to do that, right? Although, again, it's not necessarily obvious. Okay? But what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite this again. I'm going to use square brackets here to kind of separate what we have. And I will say this is minus 1 times minus 1. Okay? And then add plus minus 1 plus 1. Okay? So what I did was I took this and I moved the minus 1 into the first set of parentheses, okay? And the reason I can do that is because plus is associative. Okay, so if I'm adding 3 things, I can always change the way that the parentheses are done. Okay, now I'm going to do something even crazier than this. I'm going to take this, and I have here a minus 1 times minus 1, and I'm going to work with this minus 1, and I'm going to rewrite it, okay, as follows. I'll say that that's minus 1 times 1. Oops, square bracket, okay, plus 1 on the outside here. And the reason I can do that is because times identity, right? And the identity just means that I know a number, namely 1. When I multiply by that, I get back whatever I had before. So that's my rule. I now take in this expression that I started with, and I've rewritten it as minus 1 times minus 1 plus minus 1 times 1, okay, and then I'll add plus at the end, okay. Now, when you look at this, okay, you'll notice that I have a minus 1 times something plus minus 1 times something. So I can use the distributive law, okay. Let's stick with square brackets for now. I'll take the minus 1 and I'll put it in front, and what I'm left with is minus 1 plus 1, and then I'll just add 1, okay? And this is just distributive. Okay, so things are really happening here because I see minus 1 plus 1. I recognize that. That is just minus 1 times 0. And the reason that's true is because of times null, right? Which says that when I multiply, or no, I'm sorry, that's plus complement. What am I saying? And what's happening is that when I add minus something to something, I get back 0. Okay, so now I have minus 1 times 0, and that is what I can do times null on. So this becomes 0, this becomes 0, plus 1, and that's because of times null. I'm multiplying a number by 0. And now here's something that's interesting. I mean, I see 0 plus 1. You really just want to write down equal to 1, right? But if you look at our rules, we don't have something that tells us 0 plus x is equal to x. What we have is x plus 0 is equal to x. So I'm going to have to change the order of this. This is 1 plus 0, and that's because of plus is commutative. And now I can say that's equal to 1 because of plus identity. Okay. And when we end a proof, it is customary to simply write Q, E, D at the end. Okay, that is Latin for something which I don't quite know what it is, but you can simply think of it as quite easily done.